Okay, the night impulse of day 2 is now over. We're just about to start day 3. So we have to pick assets again. Just to let you know what's been used in terms of assets so far. The Pact has used artillery and gunship already. It still has the second guards and chemical, hasn't used those yet. NATO has has used the airstrike one so far. And it still has signal interception, so that I think is going to be NATO's ace in the hole for the rest of the game, while second guards is going to be Pacts. So now we're going to draw fresh assets, and the Pact player starts off by drawing 3 asset chits. So here we go, we're going to draw those chits and see what we get. Here we go. Alright, 1, 2, 3, alright, and we get 87th Rifle, Jamming, and Gunship. Okay, so those are our 3 available assets. I get 1 for day 3 and 1 to day 4, and the third one gets discarded. Well, gee, I really like the idea of the 87th Rifle being available. More guys, that sounds good. And so far the gunships have served me well, so I'm going to take those guys. So I'm going to put 87th Rifle as my asset for day 3 for the Pact. And we'll put the gunship on day 4. And jamming will get thrown away. Okay. Our 4th chit that we didn't pull was artillery, and we're going to discard that. Okay, NATO gets to draw 5 assets. So this is nice. This is a big switch from the first day where the situation was reversed and the Pact player got 5 assets. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay, alright, here we go. Alright, NATO assets. Okay, first of all, there's a gunship asset that we didn't pick, so that gets discarded. And the 5 assets we get are second air cav, which is great. They're awesome. Airstrikes, which is really good too. NATO artillery, not bad. Some territorials for the West Germans, and another gunship. Okay, so now NATO gets 2 assets for day 3 and 2 to day 4. Definitely want the second ACR coming in. I'd like the territorials to help out the West Germans, so we'll put those on day 3 for NATO. And for day 4, we'll take the airstrike and the gunship and put those on day 4. And NATO doesn't need much in terms of artillery right now, so we'll toss that. Okay, so those are our assets for now. Looks like it could get interesting here. We've got a lot of different assets coming up on day 3. Let's see how they get used. Alright, here we go. The end of day 3, Impulse 1. And some surprising things have happened this turn. First of all, NATO got an activation number of 3, so it was able to activate everything it wanted to. The first thing it did was it brought in the West German territorials way up here in the north, just up here, and those guys came onto the board and tried to hit at one of the Soviet units that was trying to make a play for the west edge of the board here. It hit it but didn't destroy it, and that Soviet unit made its way west and broke through. So the Soviets now have 2 strength points that have broken through to the west. Need 7 more to gain a victory point. And as you can see over here, up here, we've got another unit, another second guards unit that is moving west, and I'm sure the territorials up here are going to try to intercept it. So the West Germans have some reinforcements coming onto the board. They're not helping out much around here, around Stahlhammer, but they're trying to catch anything that gets by them. The Americans also got reinforcements this time too. The second air cav came in, and it has basically 3 recon units. It also has a gunship that can be called in for the next 4 impulses, so that can come in pretty handy. The gunship actually did quite a nice job here, especially in the center of the board. What it did was it eliminated one of the tanks that was attacking this this American armored unit. At the same time, however, the American Army armored unit made an attack and suffered defensive fire, so it's barely holding on. The Soviets also put reinforcements on the board, and they landed the 2nd Guards Airborne into Mittelbaum, Nazabruck down here, and they're hoping to try to cut off or at least delay a reinforcement from the American 2nd ACR, which has come in on the board. So its objective is to try to keep these guys isolated from these guys so that they don't link up. The Soviets also got some other reinforcements this turn. They also got elements of the 33rd Motorized Rifle Division, poured 1 regiment in, and it gets 1 regiment every impulse for day 3, so that's quite big. It also played its 87th Motorized Rifle Division reinforcements chit this turn, so here's the 33rd coming in, and here's the 87th coming in. The 87th is not very good. It's some real relics, some old equipment, and it's got a low activation number of only 3. But they're really good for trying to make a rush off to the west. So that anything you can do to sort of keep putting the pressure on NATO is good. So I'm trying to get all of my major units on the board during day 3 so they can push where they need to for day 4, which is the last day of the game. So generally speaking, not much has really happened in terms of getting objectives this turn. Down south near Eisenbach, the Americans have managed to get an armored unit here onto the road, and that has basically cut off the Soviet line of communication back to J20. So that needs to be taken out for the Soviets to get their victory point at the end of the game. So that's something to consider. Otherwise, this should start to get really, really interesting in the next few impulses. We'll see who's set up for day 4 and set up ready for a win. It's day 3, the end of Impulse 2, and boy, has a lot happened. First things first, NATO got an activation number of 5. So it couldn't move many units, but it did manage to get the 13th ACR flowing. It's now up near Mittelbaum and trying to take on these 2nd Guards Airborne guys that are sitting in the city, and it managed to do a little bit of damage. 1 unit of the 13th ACR was sent up to the middle of the board, and it's working with the infantry from the 1st Brigade to protect the bridge line here. Over by Eisenbach, the American Armored Brigade or Battalion tried to make some attacks, but actually got eliminated from defensive fire. So basically, we've only got this 1 American armored unit here that's reduced, sitting east of Eisenbach, and one that's really weak. It's -2 hits right now, so it's basically almost dead. And we have another American armored unit in the center of the board protecting this bridge over here, and it's down to only 1 hit left, so it's nearly gone as well. So the Americans are just hanging on by a thread here. Over in the north, things were actually even worse. What happened was, because of the high activation number, the territorials over here could not actually activate. They couldn't do anything. So they just sat there. And because the Soviets had a lower activation number, they could activate more guys, although they moved a little slower. And now another 2nd Guards tank unit is making its way slowly through to the west. So the West Germans have a tough decision here. Do they try to reinforce Stahlhammer with their territorials, or do they try to hit at these guys who are kind of trickling across the board? Which brings us over to this battle here near Stahlhammer, and things are quite desperate there. Things do not look good for the West Germans at all. The Soviets have taken Hagenstadt over here. They took the city by eliminating the infantry, and they've moved a tank battalion in there. There, you'll notice in this city right here in the middle, that's kind of surrounded by everything. Those are two West German armored units that are down to their last bits of health. They're basically just clinging on. They're nearly gone, and they took some defensive fire trying to eliminate some of the attackers, the Soviet attackers, and they took out a couple of attackers, but they've just taken so many hits right now that there's no way they can hold on. So you can see that the road to Stahlhammer is basically almost wide open. We've got only one West German unit sitting here defending that area, and it's looking very, very grim at this point, especially when you consider the fact that the 33rd Motorized Rifle Division is moving guys down here along. They're fresh, they're new, and they're obviously going to inflict some pain on the West Germans over here. The 87th Motorized Rifle Division over here has managed to keep moving, and its tanks, ancient tanks, are sort of cluttering along the road here. They're approaching this bridge junction here and trying to keep the Americans sort of tied up and keep them away from hitting down south near Eisenbach. There's another regiment of the 33rd Motorized Rifle Division. This is the 34th, and it's entered here, and it's coming down to help out Eisenbach. I don't think the Soviets can hold on in Eisenbach. I think they're going to get taken out. At the same time, however, I'm almost certain the West Germans are going to get hit and they're going to lose Stahlhammer. So I think there's going to be some big changes coming up the next couple of impulses. We'll see how it goes. Okay, it's day 3 here, end of impulse 3, and some interesting things have happened here. The pack got the highest activation number at 4, which was really good for it. It managed to activate quite a lot of units this time. The pact opened up with attacks here on Hagenstadt, which didn't really produce any results at all, but the city is thoroughly almost surrounded here. And some units have actually moved on to hit at Stahlhammer up here. And the result is that we've got a Soviet unit right here that's managed to actually inflict a little bit of damage on this lone West German panzer unit right there. Down south, the 33rd Division has come in and started hitting at the isolated American armored units that have managed to cut off the line of communication from Eisenbach back east. So the Soviets are working on freeing up Eisenbach, and that seems to be going okay so far. They've managed to inflict 1 damage on that armored unit. On the NATO turn, NATO was forced with a couple of big tough decisions here. The first was it had an armored unit was sitting over here, and because it's nearly dead, it just ended up retreating back over the bridges. So basically, the Soviets now almost control the center of the board, and the 87th up here is moving quickly. It didn't get to activate this turn, but if it gets a few more activations, it'll be going. It'll be presenting a major threat to the U.S. in the area. The German territorials, which are up here, actually managed to inflict some damage on a Soviet unit and actually destroy it. So now the road is open to Stahlhammer to get those reinforcements through. Whether they're going to arrive there on time or not is up for debate, especially with the 33rd now surrounding Hagenstadt and quickly closing in on Stahlhammer Air Force Base. Reinforcements did make it on the board here. Another regiment of the 33rd came in. This time it's on the roads up north here, probably going towards Stahlhammer to secure the victory. Not much is actually going on down here in the Eisenbach section. The 2nd ACR is still unable to dislodge the 2nd Guards Airborne that's sitting in the cities just near Eisenbach and has cut off any American approach to reinforce that area. So the Soviets are doing a really good job of kind of keeping the Americans at bay. but they can't quite seem to seal the deal here. They still don't have any victory points, although they're very close to reaching them. Dangerously close to getting 3 if they play their cards right. So we'll see what happens. Next is Impulse 4, and off we go. 3 Impulse 4, and boy are the West Germans in trouble. Lots has happened. Basically, the Pact has got an activation number of 4. NATO got 3. So Pact went first and moved quite a few of its units. Managed to make some very successful pushes on towards Stahlhammer. Took out 2 West German armored battalions in Hagenstadt. That's devastating. There's only 1 battalion from the 1st Panzer Division that's still alive, and that's the one sitting over here in Stahlhammer, and it's already reduced by 1. The West German territorials have, however, managed to come to the east and try to reinforce Stahlhammer, but it looks like they might be kind of late for that. You can see that I've got an infantry, West German infantry here, and West German armor and mechanized infantry sitting here, but you can see this flood of Soviets about to slam Stahlhammer. So things don't look very good up there for the West Germans. Down south, near Eisenbach, things were pretty bad too for NATO. Zooming out here a little, the big loss here down in the southern sector, the 33rd managed to utterly wipe out an American armored battalion. So with only a cavalry squadron left, it decided to peel off and pull back. The news wasn't totally bad for NATO this turn, however. They did manage to make some nice gains getting on towards reinforcing Eisenbach. First of all, they managed to inflict some damage on the Soviet infantry in Eisenbach by making costly but effective attacks against across the river. The 2nd ACR also took out the 2nd Guards Airborne that was sitting in Mittelbaum, and another 2nd Guards Airborne battalion, or regiment, I guess, has moved down here and near Nasebrook and should start working against the 2nd Guards there. Right now they can't get over the river. There are no viable paths to reinforce this sector east of Eisenbach, so whoever's sitting there is on their own. So things look really, really desperate for NATO right now, and we're going to be going into the night phase soon for day 3, and then it'll be our final day, day 4, and that is for all the tea in China, so let's see how things work out. The end of the night phase on day 3. Not a lot has happened here. Pact got an activation number of 5, and NATO ended up getting broken orders, but then picked it up again by getting a result that let it pick its own activation number, so it picked a 3. Pact basically ended up moving more of its tank units over to Stahlhammer. Didn't attack, but just basically got set up for future attack, probably tomorrow morning. And the reinforcements down south, the 33rd, chased down here towards this area, Peschdorf, right here, where there's an American, badly mauled American unit that could potentially try to run up in the next day or so and try to cut off the line of communication in a desperate bid. So what's happened here is the Soviets have moved some tanks down the road as insurance to make sure that does not happen. Some of the reinforcements continued their march towards Eisenbach, hoping to reinforce it just in case the infantry here falls. As far as the Americans and West Germans went, the big thing that happened here was an armored unit that was badly mauled and hurting got some replacements. It's sitting behind the bridge there. And up north, near Stahlhammer, the West German territorials have managed to get an infantry unit into Stahlhammer to help bolster the defenses there. I'm not that confident that they're going to hold on. two other territorial units are here on the outskirts of the Air Force base, and they may try to reinforce it next turn if they can. And that's about it. There's not a lot else that's really happened in the night. Not many units made their recovery rolls, so things like reinforcements and replacements didn't really come in, except, like I said, for this one American unit sitting behind the front lines here across the bridge. So that's it for day 3, and we're headed off into day 4 right away, and that's our last day. And the die is not yet cast at this point. It's really anyone's game. The Soviets currently pretty much have a line of communication to Eisenbach, pending their ability to hold on here in this sector. And the West Germans look like they're going to fall, and Stahlhammer will probably be captured, and that'll give the Soviets the 2 victory points they need in order to win. But you never know. The NATO forces also have an airstrikes next turn, and they also get gunships, so that could also tilt the balance of the game in their own favor. They've also got signal interceptions. They still haven't used that asset, and the Soviets are kind of low on assets right now. They have chemical weapons still, which they have not yet used, and they've got gunships. So those are going to come into play definitely in day 4. And I'm guessing that those could very well determine how this thing plays out in the end. It's been a great game so far. We'll see how it goes. On to day 4.